Hey crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestdummies.com, and today I have an overview and a demo for you of a new product for me, and it's called the Arteza Real Brush Pens. Now, watercolor markers are really hot right now, so I wanted to give you another option. And just to be clear, these were sent to me for review purposes, but my opinions are my own and based on my firsthand use of the product. So I had got a 48 count set, and let me show you how they come when you open up the box. They come in these trays that actually stack if you wanted to take them out of the box and just have them on your desktop. And they're molded so they don't even like shake around or anything, but you can see. So it does have a color indicator on the back and a clear cap. You can kind of see the color through the cap. It's actually not ideal, but this means that all of these caps are interchangeable, so you don't have to use the right cap on the right marker necessarily. And they do park here on the back, not particularly well, but you know, mostly you won't be having them that way anyway. All right, I'm gonna lie and say no. Well, they do park. They do park. Okay, there you go. Now you know. So one of the things I want to point out to you is that this is actually what they call a real brush tip, and I'm going to ruin my manicure for you and show you that you can actually pull the bristles apart and see that this is actually like a paintbrush that all form together to create one nib for you. So it is not a felt nib, it is actual brushes. And when you go to use them, you're going to get a brush-like quality to them. So going slower is going to give you more color coverage than going quickly. But you can also get some very nice thin lines as well as thicker brush strokes. I'm going to start my demo on this piece of heat-pressed watercolor paper, and that just means that it's smooth. It is watercolor paper, but it is smooth. So I'll show you here on this watercolor paper first, and then I'll show you some samples on cardstock. But in order to create a broad stroke of color, you want to go smoothly and apply layers. This is water-based, so it will move around quite a bit with water, and I'll show you that in a moment. But you can get thick lines, you can get some brush stroke style lines, and you can also get really nice, thin, fine lines, which is great if you like to do adult coloring book activities. This is great. Now, it will also be very, very blendable. So as I move over here and show you a little bit of blue, I'm going to show you how it blends with some yellow here. And I really recommend, I can just go right into the blue and get it to blend right on the paper without even using water. You can actually use these, the brush pens are almost juicy enough to kind of be their own blending tool. You don't even necessarily need water. And as you can see here, I've got a really nice gradation of color without using any water at all. But of course, you can also do it the other way and scribble down some color like so, and then use a water brush. By the way, Arteza also makes beautiful water brushes, and I will be reviewing those, and you can mix right on the paper. Similarly, if you want to make a custom color, you can also scribble onto something like an acrylic block, like so, and then use a water brush to mix and then apply. Now I am going to do just a quick side-by-side comparison because I know people will ask, what's the difference between a Zig Clean Color and an Arteza Real Brush? And the answer is, well, size for one. Zig has a slightly larger barrel, but it is shorter versus the Arteza is longer. Both will lay down very pretty color. So here's the Arteza, and here is the Zig. And both will blend very nicely with water. So here's some Zig blendy. And here's some Arteza blendy. Now I did put down less material here, but it was my opinion that maybe the Artezas were a little less saturated overall than the Zig. But the price point of these was about $50 for 48 colors. So this is definitely kind of an economical brand to get started with. So here's a sample page I did, and I just wanted to share it with you. This is drawing paper. So I did not use watercolor paper. I actually used very flimsy paper, but it would be about the same kind of weight, 80 pounds, that you might use, say, in a journal. So I did do some nice big brush strokes here and sampled out some finer lines. On this, I actually used a little bit of sparkle pen to go over the top, and I'll show you a cool trick on that later. But here again, I blended using just 2 colors of marker. Here I used some water. Here's where I picked it up off of the acrylic block. And as you can see, it all worked really well. There's only one place that it actually bled through, the 80-pound paper, and that's where I laid down a lot of color very heavily in order to get it to blend on the watercolor paper, or the drawing paper. Here's a larger sample board using watercolor paper. So again, I wanted to show you, here's my brush strokes. Here's using the sparkle pen. Here is where I did some watercoloring with it. So I actually just laid some, a little bit of color down and then blended it together with water. And it holds up very nicely. If you like to do coloring on your stamps, this is a great thing. So let me just show you a couple of other little fun tricks and tips on how to use this. So one, of course, is using a water brush to pick up the color and blend it, or to fill in the areas. That's always a great thing. But you can also do, as seen here, kind of what we call a tip-to-tip transfer. And we've seen this a lot with, like your Tombow markers or felt nib markers. But you can actually do it here too, and I'm going to show you how. I'm going to go ahead and touch the bristles, one on the top and one on the bottom, and let gravity feed some of this color through so that actually I'm getting pink loaded into the bristles of the blue. Then I can actually kind of get some pretty ombre colors as the color transfers back out. And you can see here where I did this with a purple to teal, and then this was the pink to the blue. You can also get the same effect going from clear to a color by putting some water on an acrylic block or on your table, and then just kind of dipping your bristles in it until you see them lighten up. They go almost clear. Now I can go ahead and go onto my paper, and I'm going to get a light blue, and as I scrumble back and forth, it's going to get more and more intense. So this is just another way of getting kind of an ombre or a depth of color without having to buy multiple markers. And here's another little tip. If you have a sparkly style marker, like, say a Wink of Stella or a Sparkle Noir, what you can do too is put some color down on your craft mat or acrylic block. And then you can use your Wink color to actually pick that up to give you a colored marker. And here I'm going to go ahead and start applying it. As you can see, it's picked up that blue, but it's also working its way back out to just plain sparkly. So you can use these as a blender pen. And yeah, they come clean, so you can keep reusing them. For the last part of my demo here today, I'm going to go ahead and just show you a little speed color of an image that I did from Stampendous. And as you can see, I just kept it very loose in adding like these broad brush strokes of the color using the Arteza Real Brush Watercolor Markers. And then I used a water brush to kind of fill in and move everything around. And I really do feel like while they're not as concentrated as Zig's really, they do have enough color that you can move them around and use them like watercolor blenders. I'm also showing you a couple of other techniques where you layer the color and then use the marker itself to blend things in, or use the sparkle brush. But the point is that for $50 a set on Amazon. You get a lot of colors and a lot of fun, and it's perfect for people who are just getting their feet wet into markers. Now, if you already have Zigs, this is probably redundant for you, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But if you're just getting your feet wet into a real brush marker, this is a great set for you. I hope you've enjoyed the demo and the review. Please leave me a comment, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks everybody, and have a crafty day.